skill without culture is kind of meaningless. But when we have that Bulgarian ability to say, no, we got to do it this way, I have an actual opinion, or I'm not afraid to say I don't understand, I'm not afraid to challenge, that's powerful, right? So if we...
Здравейте, приятели! И добре дошли в първи епизод на Look и Found, подкастът за хората от IT индустрията. Днес ви представяме човек, започнал пътя си през вълнуващите дни на бума, който и сега е част от пейзажа на индустрията, Стив Кайл, Индиана Джоунс на българската IT сцена. Той стои зад компании като MariaDB, Mammoth DB, VMWare, Sciant и много други. Стив е едно от най-значимите имена на родния IT пазар и ние нямаме търпение да сподели невероятното си пътуване с всички нас. Така че подгответе се и посрещнете първият ни гост, Стив Кайл.
So, Steve, talking about everything about AI, about how far the market's come and so on, we do talk a lot about skills, but what are the non-technical skills you think engineers should have?
Okay, I admit I talk about this with my co-founder Alex because he does more interviewing and working with them than I do, so full credit to him. His views on this were the ability, and this is going to sound a little goofy maybe, to, okay, post-COVID, right, everybody went Zoom. Yeah. And they created, I think, too many meetings. We don't need to be on these damn meetings. Exactly. So he actually thinks, and he does this himself, one of the skills is the ability to do other stuff and realize when a meeting is not productive, to be able to somehow pretend you're on the meeting while doing everything else. And I think that's fair, right? Because, I mean, we talk about how do we become productive, but we kind of forget about saying how do we like get rid of things we don't really need. Like, we don't need a zillion people on a meeting usually. We don't need blah, 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 blah. But we just do it. We add people and it's on Zoom and oh, that's fine. And so one of the skills I think is actually important, weirdly, when again, credit to Alex, is the ability to realize that you don't really need to be on this meeting, but you've been invited and you're supposed to be on it. To look like you're there, but actually do something more productive.
By the way, have you seen, there is some kind of video trend of a guy, I'm really not sure about his name, a guy who is, filming himself with a green screen behind him in a Zoom calls, but doing some other stuff like boxing or skiing or going on a safari or stuff like that.
I haven't, but awesome, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, I'm going to plug in NVIDIA here. If you're watching, we want you to be a sponsor. I need a new video card. NVIDIA. So actually, they have the same opinion as Alex. They created a software for new video cards that basically makes you always seem like you're looking at the camera and listening very closely while you're doing anything else.
Okay, now we're all plugging NVIDIA.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
NVIDIA.
The other one is, I think we are, thanks to COVID, I don't know, is we are becoming more distributed or accepting of distributed natures and work. And the other one that, again, this is coming from Alex, because he's dealing with a lot of distributed teams, is being more flexible and understanding the cultures of other countries. So he's like, for example, now dealing with a lot of Indian teams and Pakistani teams, and it's different than dealing with Bulgarian teams. And Bulgarians, I would say, are actually quite similar to Western Europe, right? It's not that big of a leap. Yeah, but when all of a sudden you're dealing with Vietnamese or Chinese or Indian or Pakistani teams, there are differences. And I think a non-technical difference, and I agree with him on this, is how to understand what they're actually saying. So when they say, yeah, what does it actually mean? Yeah. Yeah, we can do that on time. And I've done that myself. Like I've worked with a lot of teams where they have this concept of face in Asia, where you don't want to seem like you don't know something. And so it's hard to then understand, do they really know what you mean or not? Because they won't ever say, I don't get it. Like, I'll just, if my wife says, do you not know what I'm saying? And I'll be like, no, honey, can you explain it? You can't do that in Asia, right? Because then you look somehow bad. Yeah. It's face, right?
Probably it's kind of a cultural thing here.
Exactly. Well, but that's a non-technical, as we become more distributed, and I think that's a trend, right? We need to understand how to work with cultures from 20 countries, right? How do we do that? Or like, sometimes I was working with some cultures where when they're nervous, they laugh, like in Mexico. And you're thinking, are they laughing at me? Am I stupid? But no, they're just nervous. You know what I mean?
Like laughing like what you're doing right now?
Yeah. But you guys aren't nervous. But the Mexicans, when I was dealing with them, were actually like nervous. And I was like, am I saying something dumb? But turns out they were just nervous. So that kind of cultural skills are interesting. So I would say like the Zoom remote skills that Alex was talking about, plus cultural skills, those are kind of neat things to have besides. I would say one more out of my own. This goes back to that same Brad dude. I remember at the archive.org, because he was like older and gone through like 8 companies by then. He was like, and this goes back to programming languages. It's always so cool to be like, oh, Rust is so cool and Go is so cool and the latest language is so cool. But end of the day, and frameworks, right? Because they do all these libraries for you and you don't have to do anything. But I remember, funny story. I was at the archive.org and they had some new interns and stuff. They had some frameworks and Eclipse, blah, blah, blah. And they just did stuff, but they didn't really have any idea of the fundamentals of architecture. And Brad was looking at these like thousands of lines of code, and they like brought us some Perl script and did it in like 8 lines. And he's just like, oh my God, Steve. It's like, really? Imagine like the future maintainability, support, blah, 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 blah. Like the difficulty of simplicity is a skill I think we need to adapt. It's like, it's so easy to adopt all these frameworks that kind of do stuff for you without understanding the logic underneath. But the more as we get older, especially as developers get older, that's fine for young developers. Just go for it. Use frameworks, libraries, whatever. But as you get older, I think one of the other cool skills to learn is the actual underlying architecture and philosophy behind simplicity and the wisdom of simplicity.
We are somehow speaking about maturity here in terms of, not only market maturity, but like in general. So if we haven't reached it yet, how close is the Bulgarian market to, achieving maturity?
I think we're very close. Like 5-10 years away.
How do you define maturity? Because this is actually something that is also discussable. I mean, this is a topic that some people are sharing different kind of opinions, especially since the market has started transitioning from predominantly outsourcing oriented to a more product-oriented one. So how do you define maturity in first place?
That is a ridiculously difficult question. The way I said 5-10 years was gut instinct. I'm not sure I can define it because it's an emotional. Well, when I say emotional, it's also just from my weird experience over years.
You're quite experienced guy in first place. Probably you have already learned to trust your guts about that.
Yeah, that's not definable. That's just gut emotional instinct. From seeing that transition from outsourcing to understanding product dev to understanding and embracing our quality, right? I see that we're on a trajectory in general, just from working with my teams, of being close. I don't know if I can define it because it's my gut. And maybe we shouldn't, right? Maybe emotions are okay sometimes in work. But I see it as an appreciation of not just the code, but the business. If that sounds weird, because a lot of times it's all about the code and we forget that actual business process is what feeds the workflow. What do I mean by that? It's like right now we're doing stuff, for example, at BlastCap in March 1st with the logistics industry. They want us to use some latest framework or latest tool like Snowflake or whatever. And they think that's going to solve their issues. And what actually solves their issues is just better business process. And they're failing at that. And what I feel like is Bulgarians are starting to realize it's not just about the tech, it's about understanding the underlying business process. And that's mature. When we start realizing that, which we are, because I see a lot of us are going beyond the tech and saying, I don't care about the language anymore. What's the goal? What are we trying to do? Who gives a shit of it? Who gives up? Who cares if it's Rust or Go or Erlang or I don't care. What is our goal? And that's mature, right? So I feel I define it when it's sort of a marriage between business understanding and the technical skills, and being above almost the technology and saying, I'm just going to do whatever is the goal. And I don't care about the language.
Sorry for hijacking the conversation
Please
here.
do.
Yeah, I really would like to ask you something more about that. Because obviously there are a lot of things happening in the Bulgarian market right now, but let's imagine this hypothetical situation that you're taking control over the operations in the Bulgarian IT industry. So what would you change like immediately, and what you would like to achieve by that?
Wait. Can you rephrase the question, please?
Yeah, I mean,
say it again.
Imagine that you are one of the most influencing people in the Bulgarian market, IT market. I'm not saying you're not, but still, just imagine.
I'm not. No,
yeah. What do you believe is the most important thing that we need to adopt, like a skills or some kind of a decision that should be made from a, if you want, political perspective, technological perspective? It could be whatever you believe it's important, and what will be the reasoning for adopting this decision?
That's a really difficult question. I'm not into public policy. I would maybe say a couple things. One, change public policies on immigration for skilled workers. And this gets really political, and I don't necessarily know I want to, but we should definitely open the doors to really skilled people who want to contribute and adapt to our society. Like I'm an immigrant, right? I'm Australian, now living in Bulgaria. I adopt and believe in Bulgarian principles and society. I love Bulgarian culture, and I try to do my best to fit in because I embrace Bulgarian culture. So I think we should do that and really open the doors to any immigrants who have the skills in technology, because we need more. Like we talked about that earlier in the podcast, like it's like we don't have enough, like we're limited. If we could get more who embrace Bulgarian values, I would be all into that. And I would make requirements to come in for people with skills who embrace also Bulgarian values very, very easy to come into. I would probably put more funding into training and internship programs. One of the things I love about old Germany is they had these internship programs in woodworking, in trade,
in everything,
literally,
right?
In
everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then somehow that fell out of coolness because everyone went, they're double PhD, masters, blah, 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 blah. And there was this race in education for weird degrees and something. Maybe let's treat programming like a trade again and actually fund and invest our tax dollars into trade schools for programming. Like, why not? Or give tax credits to companies that create, like Telerik has done this with the Telerik Academy, and they did a really good job. I mean, they sold, I don't know what they're doing anymore, but if I have a company and I would get tax credits for creating training programs, I'm all into it. Or have tax credits and reliefs for internships in programming positions, things like that. Everything to encourage training and journeyman, almost like that old skill, would be awesome. Attracting more, training more, contributing more, because again, I think we have some of the best programmers in the world, and I've been all over the world, and we just need to get more.
So we need to build an economy of knowledge, basically.
Why not, right? Like Switzerland has done this really well in banking and finance. Why could we not? We have the best tech schools in Eastern Europe and Central Europe. We should easily transition into that. And if we have policies that encourage companies to do internships, trainings, journeymanships, tradeships in anything from QA to DevOps to training, I think that would be well invested. So I would probably push in that direction. Education is some of the fundamentals in economy, right? And again, AI stuff.
That's the future.
I got a mate who's doing AI, and he had the AI create stories and images itself, and it didn't get picked up very well. And then he realized that if he tweaked it, like if he guided the stories and the content and all that stuff, if it was human aided and assisted AI, right, all of a sudden got picked up like 10x. This is what Bulgarians have to do. We have to use it incredibly smart. And if we start training people on how do we human assist AI, because we're adaptive and smart, all that kind of stuff in the future has to be there. So everything from just like, you know, credits for training, immigration policies, bringing good people, and again, people who embrace our values, because I don't want to disassociate culture from skill, like we talked about earlier. Culture and skill are very, very important. Like skill without culture is kind of meaningless. But when we have that Bulgarian ability to say, no, we got to do it this way, I have an actual opinion, or I'm not afraid to say I don't understand, I'm not afraid to challenge, that's powerful, right? So if we marry those two together and then do some programs like that, I guess, I don't know, it's a tough question, but
Actually, you did manage to provide pretty reasonable answer to this question. I know it was a little bit challenging and tricky.
it is.
But,
Philosophical.
Yeah, but I do believe you did manage to give us a little bit more of what exactly you're thinking about.
Can you give me an easier one next?
Choose the one with the
I'm next.
easier questions.
I'm
Yeah.
next. No, mine will be fine. But I actually have something to add. I've been looking at a lot of prompt engineering guides for ChatGPT, anything that's generative AI based, even if it's pictures, audio, anything. And actually it turns out that people were shy even when speaking to AI, which is very interesting. So we talked about Bulgarians, how we Bulgarians love saying no when we don't agree with something. Not love it, but we feel like we have to.
It makes us powerful.
No, I just have to tell people they're wrong.
You're wrong.
You're wrong. But basically, actually AI works really well when you tell it it's wrong. It actually, ChatGPT especially, 4.0, it's really good when you tell it, no, that's wrong, you're not doing it well. It completely changes its approach to how it does things. So actually, the biggest, I think we can be very successful in that, because actually you need to discuss with it.
Yep.
It's really cool. Try it. Try making ChatGPT do something, and then tell it, no, you're absolutely wrong, do it the other way. And it will do it really well. But actually, I wanted to ask, that's something kind of asking both you and Alex, who's not present at the same time. What about programming languages? Where do you see it? Because we've seen so much over people going over to Node.js, then going back to bit to Python, then Go, then going back to Java again. So
I'm pulling out my Telegram messages because I actually asked Alex this. And the reason I did that is, so Alex is my co-founder. He's my technical co-founder, and he's far more intelligent than I am in technology. And I asked him this earlier in the week about, you know, what he sees as the best or most important language. And his answer was Python. And the reason he had, I'm going to read from this, so apologies everybody, I'm reading from my screen because I wrote myself a note, is Python, because it's easy to learn and it's easy to read other people's code. It's also great for building back-end proof of concepts, especially in the modern sort of enterprise technology, whatever. POCs, proof of concepts, are the best way ever to sell, right? So POCs are super critical. Obviously, Python isn't great in terms of front end, but it has libraries for everything imaginable. It has intuitive front ends to machine learning technology. And so Python is like, I think, the go-to for ML tie-ins. And the other reason is it's easiest to hire and train people in Python. So at the end of the day, our result was Python is the thing we love the most. And I would say we've seen a lot of these trends, right? And the worst was Ruby on Rails. There was this point where like everyone wanted Ruby on Rails for something and we couldn't hire anyone. And I remember I once found one person who was an ROR. And I don't know, he was like, had 1 year of experience and what is some astronomical salary, and was like, oh, I've got 8 companies wanting me. And I was just like, I just can't do it. Like, so you have these trends. End of the day, it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier with Brad and like simplicity and understanding basic architecture, where Alex is just like, if you can do good Python, all the rest will come later. And we're really into whatever, good Python.
Cool. That's it's good. It actually fits with Stack Overflow's own research.
Ah,
Yeah.
Alex, I hope you're watching this.
Alex is right once again.
Guru.
Yes. Okay, let's go to the fun questions.
Yeah, it's about time,
It's
by the
about
way.
time. We
It's about
grilled you
time.
so much on philosophical, the future.
We need Cubans for the fun questions.
Okay, so fun question number one. What do you do outside of just work? Like, what hobby would you share with us or an interest?
Woodworking.
Woodworking.
Are you Ron Swanson or
Are
something?
you Ron Swanson?
You don't know
I'm
who
not.
Ron Swanson is?
I do not. My hobby is woodworking and Vermont renovation. I love it. Right now, we're opening another office for Blast Cap, a second one, and I'm doing all the renovation in the office myself. And I have taken economics classes. I understand that maybe it's in a pure economics view, not a good allocation of my time, but in an emotionally and spiritual sort of view, I love it. I love woodworking. So my landlord at the office is gracious enough to let me use his mosaic, his basement. And it's a creepy, horrible basement that I love. And so I have some all my machines set up there, and I'm literally renovating the entire office. And I've renovated my own house and another apartment that I bought all myself. And it's the reason I love it is I love connection with organic materials, like tactile contact. So I also like gardening at home. So my other hobby is gardening, and I have krasaviti, tomati, cucumbers, tomatoes, peppers, chushki. And I feel like when I was a kid in school, I remember I was a pre-med student, and we had a lot of studies that were talking about how tactile physical contact with soil and wood and natural materials literally stimulates serotonin in the brain. It makes you happy. And somehow when I'm connecting with like real work, real wood, real soil, real tomatis and tomatoes, I feel alive. And with all the cerebral stuff at work, like, sales playbooks and processes and programming, it's so ephemeral that my counterbalance to stress and everything else is physical work. And it comes through gardening and woodworking. So right now, I'm adoring working on, I've made our kitchen at the office, all the furnitures, I painted, I renovated, I fixed everything. And my hobby is that. And the other thing is that I want to teach my kids where a carrot comes from, right? Morkavi doesn't just come from a bag in the supermarket. You actually have to grow it and physically do it. And I love the appreciation of teaching my kids where things actually come from and the effort it takes to create that and the value that has. And so I make my kids garden with me, all of my 4 kids from 18 to 3.5. And we garden together. And we touch the soil and we weed and we plant. And I love that. So that's my hobby. It's like, it's kind of like a back to basics, human approach. The other interesting thing I think it does is it centers us, right? So in tech, right, we have all these ephemeral programming languages and all that stuff, and we lose track of the humanity. And a lot of times I've seen, my CMOs, my CEOs be like, we're above this. We have this hubris. We don't connect with our simple engineers and developers. One of the things, it sounds bad, but I see this a lot, especially in my previous companies. There's a disconnection. And when I'm doing things like woodworking for the office and creating our furniture, when I'm cleaning the office and renovating it myself, I get this direct connection with the space and the people. And when I'm making sure that me and my kids are gardening and making our food, it is somehow creating this sense of humility that we are absolutely not above or below doing any single thing. And the best thing we can do is actually be close to our connections. Like our programmers and our people making this stuff is the closest to our customers because they're making it. And as CEOs or whatever, we feel like sometimes we have this hubris or with this connection, we're far away. But no, we're actually most likely wrong. And the programmers and the product managers are the closest and understand it way better than us. And we actually have to be servants to them. My job is to actually make it easier for them. And when I do these kind of hobbies, I know it sounds kind of weird, I'm reminding myself that my job as a servant is to make it easier for them, not to push things on them. My job is to like remove barriers for all my colleagues and employees. And the more I'm like in touch with like my own base humanity, the easier it is for me to do that. Where I see a lot of CEOs are like at some sort of ivory tower level and they're disconnected. And so gardening and woodworking connects me somehow.
Actually, I do believe this is some really typical Bulgarian, let's say, thing, because one of the things that I really admire, you know, in us as a nation, as a people, is the fact that, okay, it might sound a little bit weird, but I do believe that we are not taking ourselves that seriously, but in a good manner. And the things that you just shared, you know, the connection with the soil, if you want, with the nature and everything, is definitely something that I do believe we need to keep like something that's really important for us.
It's amazing.
And on the funny side, you're now typical Bulgarian. You're doing your work, and after this, you're taking care of some woodwork and everything. You know how the typical Bulgarian summer looks like? You're taking days off, vacation, just to make some kind of a repairs in your apartment or your villa. I'm living in this for a couple of years, and I'm true Bulgarian. You're now true Bulgarian as well. So, cheers, mate. Cheers. You're a Bulgarian.
That is a huge compliment for me.
That is actually super. I was thinking the exact same thing. You've actually transformed.
I love that.
Yeah,
Thank you
true.
so much.
There's actually a saying, I'm taking a day off to do my actual job.
True that.
That's actually
I'm taking a day off to do
my actual job. Gardening and renovating my apartment.
Yeah. Anyway, so
Yeah, and speaking about, you know, Bulgarian stuff, what is the most absurd thing that you ever heard from a candidate, from a vendor, about Bulgarians, about the IT market in the first place? Like something that was really absurd, and it's not necessarily to be something that was true.
oh my gosh, I see an old colleague and friend who should come visit us at the table. You know, I got to say, lately I haven't heard anything that much absurd. That's a difficult question because somehow lately everybody's been pretty cool and chill. I did have a candidate that I was interviewing for a position who decided that I wasn't serious enough, and she literally told me that. She said, "You're not serious." I don't know, because I was asking her some fun questions in the interview. And, okay, I don't know if most people may not know me, but I did like a TED Talk, which was like all about play manifesto. Yeah. And I don't believe personally that play, in a sense of play and frivolity, is antithetical to being serious. Like I'm very serious and I'm in my zone and in flow, but I want to have fun doing it. Like I don't think we shouldn't have fun and live our life, right? Like we should be embracing fun and living our life. And so I was asking her some fun questions or silly questions that maybe she thought was dumb. And she literally, and she was in like her second interview, and I wanted to hire her actually.
You didn't manage to hire her?
No, she actually rejected me because she said I
She
wasn't.
rejected you.
Yeah, because I wasn't serious enough. She somehow thought that my playful questions didn't mean I was serious about my business. And I was just like, that's insane to me. But fair enough, that's a mismatch culturally, and clearly I shouldn't have hired her. And it's good that she did. But I still remember that. That was years ago. I still felt like, what the actual heck? Because, I mean, at the time we had, like 50 people. The company was growing really well. We had customers like Uber, and I was having fun working. And how dare you, think that fun is bad at work? And she literally rejected me because she said I'm not serious.
Actually ties in super well with your TED Talk, which will be in the comments.
But generally, I think we've evolved a lot, and I don't see that many goofy things like with candidates. Okay, plug for you guys. I think because you take the time to understand me as a client, you haven't presented me with clients that give me anything kind of weird, right? Like, because you've synchronized with how I want to hire and what's important to me. And so I haven't seen that many candidates ask silly things. But this one girl was just like, she literally said to me in the interview, like, you seem really unserious. How can you like have a business, blah, 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 blah. And this was our second interview. I'd already told her that our business was, millions of revenue, blah, 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 growing customers.
So we'll need definitely to put this TED Talk into the comments.
Yeah,
But you know what I mean? Like, I didn't get how she was there.
We've spared you a lot of that during the time at MariaDB. We've heard them.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, you filtered that out.
I've heard one about MariaDB, actually. There was a guy who told me, I cannot understand a company which uses a sea mammal as its logo.
Well, but again, he's forgetting the context of the history of open source, which always associates open source with mammals of some kind. Whether it's like, MySQL is like a dolphin, which is some sort of mammal, I think, or Hadoop, which was the elephant, or et cetera, et cetera. Somehow mammals. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, so marketing 101 here.
Well, no, it's two ways, right? One is, luckily, well, actually, it's a good filter. But the other time is it's nice to have companies understand your culture and you filter appropriately, which is good. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so let's do the rapid fire, shall we?
Ooh, rapid fire, let's do it. All right.
Rapid fire. So
Let's do it.
Oh, I need a Cuban cigar for this.
okay, so what book, show, video game, comics, or movie have you watched recently?
Diablo 4.
Did you play the beta?
I played the beta, and I'm super upset because my kid told me about it a bit late, my 16-year-old, and I didn't get to level 20, which gets you some sort of cool like in-game bonus when the game comes out. And I got to level 19, and I was trying to get to level 20, and my wife shamed me for playing games because she's not a gamer. And so I was almost about to get to level 20, and she shamed me to like stop playing, and I didn't get there. But I was playing Diablo 4, and I got to 19. That was cool. And in terms of books, I have to admit, I want to get into books, but lately I've been doing too much blogs and internet stuff. Yeah, but I do want to get back to the books because it keeps reminding me of the first book I ever fell in love with, which was The Hobbit. And if you remember as a kid, there's got to be one book that made you fall in love with literature and books and stories. And it's that book that like captured your imagination. And for me, it was The Hobbit. And one of the things I have been thinking since you said that lately is I need to get back to reading some fantasy to sort of counter some sort of skepticism in the world and enrich my sort of imagination.
You should check out Brandon Sanderson.
Thank you. Next question.
Favorite Bulgarian dish? Moussaka does not count.
It's got to be shopska, I'm sorry. Does that count? No, it doesn't count.
Yeah, it does.
It does.
Only if you grow your tomatoes and cucumbers by yourself.
I've heard some people say shopska is in Bulgarian, but I love shopska.
It is Bulgarian.
All right.
Let's not have
Otherwise,
a
I
debate
say
about it.
polnachushki.
It's Bulgarian.
We're gonna, polnachushki.
Polnachushki is my second.
Okay, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Okay, let's not give him too much time.
Yeah. Actually,
Morning person or night owl?
Pardon? Used to be night owl when I was a kid. Now I'm a morning owl. And I love getting stuff done in the morning. Rapid fire.
best piece of advice you have ever received in your entire life.
Oh my God, that's so hard because I failed so many times. Best piece of advice I've ever received. Oh my God.
Maybe it could be something that you're daily reminding yourself or something like that. It's a tricky question. I know that.
All right. I'm going to go with this one. It's really easy to put other people down and grow by putting other people down. It's really hard to grow by pulling people up.
Yep.
And one advice I got is if I want to grow in a very positive way, to do a big effort in pulling others up and helping and giving my own vulnerability. And I love that. So what I really try to do a lot is grow by pulling others up. And I thought that was kind of fulfilling to me.
The difference between a leader and a boss, right?
I think it's servant-based leadership, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so worst piece of advice. I really want to know.
You know what? What I hate is find business opportunities based on some analysis of the market, right? I hate that kind of stuff. Worst piece of advice is it goes back to, so I went to school in Australia for my MBA and all that stuff, and everybody was very super capitalist in terms of how you operate. And it was always about like stakeholder value. And everyone was always telling me about stakeholder. I'm going to give you one more best piece of advice. So I'm going to go back to that because it was prescient. One of the bad advices I always got was do what's best for the stakeholders. I don't think that's right anymore. It depends on how you define stakeholders, but I now want to do what's and customers king, because they always think stakeholder is your shareholder. They don't really mean employees by stakeholder, they mean shareholders and customers. I don't think that's right anymore. I want to do what's right by my people, my employees first. And it took me 20 years to figure that out. Okay. My customer is not king, my employee is king. And that's not conventional wisdom still in modern Australian capitalism. The other great advice, I'll go back to it, sorry, to go back. I had this guy named Anthony Bertini. He was the CEO of BMC Media. And he sent me to do a talk in Britain at the United Airlines convention or something. It was thousands of people, super snobby conference, etc. And the advice he gave me on speaking, it led me to being unafraid to speak. He said, Steve, here's what I want you to do. It sounds really, really incredibly boring. Practice, practice, practice. I know it's boring. Sit in front of a fucking mirror. Sit in front of a mirror. Practice, practice, practice. Over and over and over until you've memorized it. The second thing is master the power of the pause. Say something, then wait. That pregnant pause, that moment of sort of space between your words is powerful. And he gave me those two pieces of advice when I was going to go speak and I was a bit nervous, and I loved it. And I think that's really helped me in my speaking in general.
Steve, that was awesome.
Thank you. No, actually, nothing. I think we're done with the
rapid fire. You don't have another rapid? That was 3 rapid fires? Yeah, no. Give me another one.
Oh, yes. We have one. It's the last for today. Yeah. Come on, Alex. I'll give you the honor.
Can you share an example from your career of a failure? And that kind of a failure, but that kind of a failure that you did manage to learn from it.
The one that still hurts.
The one that still hurts, yeah.
Easy, Mammoth DB. We took investment when we probably should not have, and we took investment from investors we probably should not have, and we handled the investment in ways we should not have. So at Mammoth, with this data warehouse company, we were trying to make this distributed BI database. We took investment, and traditional wisdom says it's going to touch back to the next podcast I want to do with you, but it's about grow, grow, grow. In hindsight, the only thing that grows nonstop is cancer. I didn't want to grow, 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 but our investors pushed us to grow, 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 to overhire. So we took that 1.6 million, and we had already put in 400,000 euros of our own money, right? So this was now 2 million. And it was very personal for me because it was my own money and my own investment plus their investment. So we had this 2 million euros, And they pushed us to hire fast, but we didn't need to. There was no reason, but there was this, traditional mentality of grow as a startup. Absolutely no reason to have. I wouldn't anymore ever do that. And in fact, I'm very gun shy of pre-seed and seed investment anymore until I have a repeatable sales proposition. So this was like, pre-repeatable sales proposition. So we took it. We were kind of very much forced to hire fast, and we did it. We didn't push back hard enough. The other point is we weren't educated enough to understand what ARR was versus services, versus how to rebrand services as ARR. Because if you look at every open source company now, what is it really? What is support? It's services rebranded as a subscription, which is somehow ARR, right? So we didn't get these little tricks. We didn't play the game properly. And we had a huge conflict with our investors. Me personally did. They didn't like me. I didn't like them. And it created massive tension in the company. And it got to the point where we didn't want to go to work in our own company. Like me and my co-founders would wake up and be like, gotta go to work in my own company, right? That's a shameful position to be in. It's not a proud position to be in. And it got to the point where I didn't even want to be at my own company anymore. Like we had all fit, none of us did. And that's a massive failure. Like when you've put in years and your own money into a startup and you don't even want to go to work at your own company is not the best place to be. So it was a failure. That being said, I ended up just trying to find a buyer to get out. And my goal was to get out from my investors and the situation. I wouldn't change it because I've learned a heap of lessons from that. And even getting that investment, I went to 100 VC companies. And I pitched 100 VC companies. Because we were in Bulgaria at the time and nobody wanted to invest in Bulgaria. I remember Salesforce.com Ventures, SF Ventures. They're a huge fund, 100+ million fund. They thought for somehow I was based in the UK. And we went through 4 meetings with them. And from the beginning, I said I was from Bulgaria, right? And finally, they were like, okay, we're going to do due diligence. Let's meet for coffee. And I'm like, well, I'm in Bulgaria. Do you want to fly somewhere? And they're like, what? We thought you were in the UK. And I was like, no, I'm Bulgarian. And they're like, I kid you not. In the meeting, Salesforce Ventures said, oh, fuck. Bulgarians are thieves and crooks. We can't invest in you. This is like our 5th meeting now, right? And it's like, we went through a lot of VC and a lot of stuff and a lot of trials and tribulations. And it was a huge learning experience. And we ended up settling for those that would take us. I would never do it again. If they don't want to take us, I'm just not going to do it. There was a lot related to that. But this whole thing about getting the VC funding with Mammoth was a massive failure. We epically didn't do well. We ended up fire sailing. Even though we had broken even in terms of P&L, it was a disaster. But the lessons learned were huge. And I wouldn't change it. Like I wouldn't go back and change it.
Yeah. That's the bottom line of everything.
Actually, that's a weirdly powerful line. Yeah. The only thing that constantly grows is cancer. Like,
yeah.
Oh, I think a lot of people need to hear that one.
There's no reason. There's nothing wrong with a slowly growing, profitable business. In fact, I respect that a lot. And you don't need to rapidly grow when there's no business case for it, really.
Yeah. Yeah. Constant pushing is not always.
But we're told that that's what we got to do.
Yeah.
Now, back to hiring as well, right? I'd rather grow slow and steady with a really good cultural fit, and that's going to make me a stronger business in the long run than rapidly growing with a non-good cultural fit. I would rather pay a high price for a really good fit, amazing person than just hire a skill. Yeah. And that's crucially important.
This sounds like a really good line that we need to,
It's not a line.
Strain of truth.
Yeah.
But the cool thing is, I know you guys are already there. No doubt about it. Every time I've had an interview with you guys, he's asking me, Mamchil, and lately you know, what is the goal? What is the job? What's the vibe? What's the soul of this thing? What's the, I don't know, like, it's not just about the skills, it's about the company. What are we looking for in the person?
Yeah, because we're humans. I mean, this is what really matters. It's that simple. So yeah, we are absolutely the same. We are sharing the same opinion here.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
And long term, I'd rather grow slow with the right people, because when you grow fast with the wrong people, it is like literally the only thing that grows nonstop in nature is cancer. And that ends up creating cultures that you don't want, because it'll create its own culture, right? It goes this way, this way, this way, this way, this way. At the end of the day, you lose productivity. You have to value the right candidate.
Yeah. That's... Oh, we got to sell that to all our clients.
Yeah.
But you already do. You don't have to. You don't have to. You do it, right?
Yeah. Well, we try.
Yeah. Steve, is there something else that you would like to share with the audience? Because you right now have this Tribune that we hope will grow, support us.
I'll say one other interesting thing. I don't know. It's off books, right? So if anyone who's ever seen my previous speeches, they know that I've always been like a maverick in terms of work-life balance. Like, I believe work is life. We've been sold a lie, right? I hate when people say, oh, it's not personal, it's just business. No, it's intimately personal. We put our heart and soul into work. I spend more time at the office than I do with my family, actually, if you look at the hours. Work in business is intimately personal. And I don't like when people say, oh, it's just work. It's not personal. It is personal. And what I would say is, I used to be super not thinking about the impact of remote work and say, I don't care where you are. And I've always said, why is it that we can, I don't know, expect you to answer an important sales email on a last proposal on a Saturday, but you can't take your daughter to, I don't know, some fitness she needs to go to on a Tuesday afternoon. It's insane. So I've always been really open to that and to remote and hybrid work. But I have to say that COVID changed my view. COVID forced everyone with like this huge chain to everyone to be remote work. And I saw firsthand, and I at first was like super excited about it, but then I saw what really happens. What really happens is when everyone's sitting from home is we don't care anymore. And we don't have a connection anymore. Like, humans are fundamentally social creatures. I want interaction with you. Sitting here with you guys is the highlight of my week. I want to talk to you. I want these questions. These questions prompt me to be better. You asking me these questions is making me think hard thoughts about how I can improve myself. These are things that I need. This human interaction stimulates me to improve myself. And what I've seen is when we were all remote for 2 years, there was this old Dilbert cartoon, and it was like work from home week 1, and he was all dressed in his costume still in his tie. Work from home week 2, he had his costume and tie, but like boxer shorts on underneath and no pants and no shoes. Work from home week 3, he had a finger puppet, of him, and he was like naked with boxer shorts or something on, like Dilbert. And it's like we all got sloppy and lazy, and you don't get kiddity and synchronicity, like this beautiful thing that happens when you actually talk to each other in person and you bounce ideas off each other real time. You don't do that. You don't like, hey, I'm going to send you a Zoom request to bounce ideas off each other and like have spontaneous fun. It's fake. It feels fake. Like, people try it, like, let's have a Zoom party.
Yeah, but I do understand why you're saying this, but this will only be applicable if we are seeing the personal and the professional life as a blend, as a healthy mixture. And if you're contributing to your job, knowing that from 8 to 5 and this is it, without any further involvement, it's not something that you could, put yourself, or you could somehow convince somebody that is good for him. And this is a natural thing. Like, you need to be pretty sure that this is something that is really good for you as not only as a professional, but as a person in first place.
There's always balance. And of course, if somebody's living in a country like, I don't know, very far away, I get it. But for me personally now, I've gone back to valuing human interaction far more than I used to. Like, there's counter arguments for everything and there's balance for everything. But the whole COVID thing and dragging everyone into the remote work, I now view as, I just personally have seen a loss of responsibility, caring, passion, and excitement. And I want to bring us a little bit more midway. Now I'm into a hybrid work situation where if you can, let's go to the work 2-3 days a week and all actually talk. And so, yeah, I'd leave you with that. It's like my final, I don't know, I'm evolving my views a lot. And now I just see that human interaction is so precious and so valuable, and understanding the importance of that. And this again goes back to even you guys with recruiting, people who value that. I don't think I would want to do a company again without face-to-face. And again, maybe, and people in other countries says, okay, maybe I just do more offsites, right? Where we have to do every month or every quarter or every 2 months, whatever. We all do meetups. But I want and I crave and I value human interaction so much anymore. I don't want to do it only remote. It's just, I think that the synergy and the build-up of tensions and ideas.
I just want to add some context for our viewers here. MariaDB, when Steve was pretty much running the Bulgarian side of things, if I'm not wrong, was one of the first truly remote companies in Sofia. So this is quite surprising coming from him.
It is. It's a slight reversal. Yeah.
It is a reversal, but good arguments there.
It is. Again, I wouldn't not hire someone based on it. Like if they're in Azerbaijan and we don't have an office there, whatever, that's fine. But I would then make an effort to fly them more frequently to meet the team. And I like this kind of hub and spoke pod model more, where we have a team of 15, 20 in maybe a country, and then they meet, and then we fly this team every quarter to meet with another team. I think human interaction is becoming precious.
Yeah. I really could not think about any better, conclusion of this conversation here.
Me too. A very important human interaction in a podcast. I think we've nailed the topic for the last one. So it was a massive pleasure, Steve.
Mate, for me, I said this before a little bit, I hinted on it, but it's a privilege because it forces me to think of ideas and philosophies outside of my usual daily. And so being invited to a podcast like this elevates me. And I want to thank you guys for inviting me. It's a privilege.
Thank you.
It was a real pleasure.
Thank you. I think I learned a lot.
Yeah, me too.
And I don't typically acknowledge that.
And actually, we will definitely like to invite you for
episode 2.
Can we do a summer one on the rooftop?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, we can.
I'm holding you to that.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
If we don't, I'm going to be a little dirty.
We can make a second summer one on a pool.
Whoever the marketing is here.
We went a little bit far with the pool, I guess.
Is there a rooftop pool?
Yeah.
We'll find one somewhere. Mutragosh.
Beach party. All right.
Great.
Thank you guys.
So, guys, the one and only Steve Keil. Thanks, guys. Това беше всичко от нас за този епизод на Look Who We Found, подкастът за хората от IT индустрията. Благодарим ви искрено за подкрепата и ще се радваме да ни последвате в социалните мрежи и платформи. Ако искате да си поговорим за пазара, за възможностите в него или търсите съдействие в привличането на талант, свържете се с нас. Все пак, това ни е работата. До скоро!